In the preface of this tale, I invite you to walk with me through the shadows of Hoia Baciu, a place whispered about in hushed tones and regarded with a mixture of fear and fascination by those who know of its legends. My journey into the heart of Romania's enigmatic forest was driven by a need to understand, to peel back the layers of myth and confront the reality that lies beneath. What I discovered there has forever altered my perception of the world and its hidden dimensions. The legends of Hoia Baciu are many, tales of ghostly apparitions, mysterious disappearances, and encounters with the inexplicable that have been passed down through generations. Skeptics dismiss these stories as mere folklore, the products of overactive imaginations and an inherent human fear of the unknown. But I have walked the twisted paths of the forest, have felt its eerie silence, and have witnessed its secrets firsthand. The legends, as I have come to realize, are not just stories. They are warnings, markers of a truth far stranger and more terrifying than any fiction. My experience in Hoia Baciu has confirmed what many have feared and few have dared to explore, that there are places in this world where the veil between our reality and something far more profound is perilously thin. The forest is a guardian of these secrets, a keeper of the threshold that divides our world from realms uncharted. The story I am about to share is not just a recounting of my descent into the unknown. It is an invitation to open your mind to the possibility that what lies beyond our understanding is not only real, but closer than we think. Whispers from the Shadow Forest. A tale of curiosity, courage, and the quest for truth that leads to the heart of Hoia Baciu's darkness. The first time I set foot in Hoia Baciu, I could swear the forest itself was sizing me up, like it knew I was another skeptic, come to poke around in its shadows and secrets. They call it Romania's Bermuda Triangle, a place where the world as you know it gets twisted, where people vanish into thin air, leaving behind nothing but whispered legends and a chill that sticks with you long after you've left. I'd heard the stories, sure, who hasn't? Ghost sightings, lights with no source dancing between the trees, a heaviness in the air so thick it feels like you're wading through it. But stories are just that, until you're standing on the edge of the woods, and every instinct is screaming at you to turn back. I remember stepping into the forest, the light from the outside world dimming as if the trees themselves were swallowing it whole. There's something about Hoia Baciu, a kind of silence that's too heavy, too full of unspoken things. I've never been one for the supernatural, but walking into that forest felt like stepping into a different realm. The air turned colder, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and settles there, making you wonder if it's just the weather or if there's something more unnatural at play. I kept walking, drawn deeper into the forest by a curiosity that felt a lot like madness. That's when I saw the lights. They were unlike anything I'd ever seen, flickering and dancing between the trees, leading me further and further away from the path I thought I'd been following. I tried telling myself there was a logical explanation, that there had to be. But Hoia Baciu isn't a place that cares much for logic. The deeper I went, the more I felt it, that sense of unease, of being watched by eyes you can't see. I heard whispers then, carried on the wind that seemed to pick up out of nowhere. They were soft, almost inaudible, like the forest was murmuring secrets meant only for me. I couldn't make out the words, but the message was clear enough. I wasn't welcome here. Looking back now, standing at the edge of something I can't quite explain, I can't help but feel like I've crossed a line I didn't even know was there. Hoia Baciu has a way of getting under your skin, of making you question what's real and what's just a trick of the light or the mind. I'm standing here at the heart of the forest, and I can feel it all around me, a presence, ancient and indescribable, as if the forest itself is alive. And maybe it is. Maybe all the stories are true, and I'm just another fool who thought he could uncover the truth. Continuing deeper into Hoia Baciu, the notion of time started to slip away from me, like water through clenched fingers. The deeper I ventured, the more the forest seemed to close in around me, trees towering like silent sentinels, their branches twisting into shapes that almost seemed to whisper secrets in a language long forgotten. The lights, those inexplicable orbs of luminescence, had vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind an oppressive darkness that my flashlight could barely penetrate. It was then that the forest began to play its tricks on me. Shadows moved at the corner of my eye, always just out of sight, skittering away when I turned to look. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to be mocking me, their laughter echoing through the trees. I told myself it was just the wind, that the rustling of the leaves and the creaking of the branches were playing tricks on my mind. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. There was a malevolence here, a darkness that went beyond the absence of light. I came across a clearing then, a space where the trees seemed to reluctantly part ways, as if to reveal a stage set for some unfathomable play. In the center stood an ancient oak, its trunk gnarled and twisted, branches reaching up to the sky like the fingers of a desperate soul. It was around this tree that the air felt heaviest, charged with an energy that seemed to buzz against my skin. Drawn to it, I couldn't help but reach out, my fingers brushing against the rough bark. The moment I made contact, a jolt of energy shot through me, images flashing before my eyes, visions of people long gone, their faces twisted in fear, their screams silent as they disappeared into the forest's embrace. Shaken, I stumbled back, the after-image of their terror burned into my retinas. It was clear now, Hoia Baciu didn't just hide the secrets of the missing. It held onto them, a collector of souls lost between the veil of our world and the next. The realization hit me like a physical blow, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps as the weight of the forest's history bore down on me. The whispers turned to wails, the mournful cries of those who had walked this path before me, their voices a warning I had failed to heed. Panic set in then, a primal urge to flee, to escape the oppressive grip of the forest. But with every step I took, the deeper into its heart I seemed to go, the trees mocking me with their immovable presence, the path twisting back on itself until I was hopelessly lost. It was in this moment of despair that I realized the true horror of Hoia Baciu wasn't the ghostly apparitions or the unexplained lights. It was the forest itself, a living, breathing entity that fed on the fears of those who dared to uncover its secrets. And I had walked straight into its trap, a willing victim to its insatiable hunger. The psychological tension was becoming unbearable, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a whisper from beyond. I couldn't tell if the forest was changing around me, or if it was my mind unraveling, the fear and isolation twisting my perception of reality. Here, in the heart of darkness, where fear and madness walk hand in hand, the true journey through Hoia Baciu begins. A journey not just through the physical space of the forest, but through the shadowy recesses of the mind, where the line between the real and the imagined blurs beyond recognition. As I pressed on, driven by a mix of dread and determination, the forest seemed to respond to my resolve with a malevolent twist. The ground beneath my feet became treacherous, uneven, as if it sought to trip me at every step. And then it happened. A misstep, a hidden hole masked by a layer of fallen leaves, sending me sprawling to the ground with a force that knocked the wind out of me. I lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, the damp earth pressing cold and wet against my cheek. When I finally managed to pull myself up, nursing a throbbing ankle and a bruised ego, I noticed something in the dirt beside where I had fallen. Partially uncovered by my fall, there lay a small, oddly shaped stone. But as I brushed away the dirt, I realized with a jolt of horror that it wasn't a stone at all. It was a skull, small and fragile, the remains of a child hidden beneath the forest floor. The sight of it, the hollow eye sockets seeming to stare up at me, sent a shiver down my spine. It was a grim discovery, a tangible piece of the forest's dark history, a reminder of the stories I had heard. This was no accident. The forest had intended for me to find this, to uncover one of its many secrets. The realization that there could be more, that I was standing on a hidden graveyard of those swallowed by the forest, was too much to bear. The psychological tension I had felt before was now overshadowed by a deep, gut-wrenching fear. It wasn't just about getting lost anymore, or the eerie phenomena that plagued this place. It was the undeniable evidence of tragedy, of lives cut short and left to be reclaimed by the earth. The whispers in the wind seemed to take on a new tone, mournful and accusing, as if the forest itself was grieving for its lost souls. I knew I should turn back, leave this place and its secrets buried beneath the undergrowth. But something compelled me to press on, a need to understand, to find out more. It was as if the forest had woven a spell around me, binding me to its will. Every step forward was a battle, not just against the physical pain of my injured ankle, but against the growing despair that threatened to consume me. The further I went, the more signs of the forest's victims I found. Personal belongings, tattered and worn by time, lay scattered among the trees. A child's shoe, a woman's scarf, a man's glasses, each item a silent testament to a life lost. The air grew colder, the atmosphere heavier with each discovery, as if the forest was closing in, eager to claim another soul for its collection. And then, amidst the gloom and the relics of the past, I stumbled upon something even more horrifying. A clearing, in the center of which stood a circle of stones, arranged in a pattern that seemed deliberate, ritualistic. At the center of the circle lay an assortment of bones, not just human, but animals too, as if some unholy ceremony had taken place here, a blending of sacrifices made to appease some ancient, unseen deity. The sight of it, the realization of the depth of the forest's darkness, was overwhelming. It was no longer just a place of natural mystery, but a site of ancient and malevolent practices, a place where the barrier between our world and something far more sinister was thin enough to cross. I stood at the edge of the clearing, my heart pounding, the weight of the forest's secrets pressing down on me. The temptation to turn and flee, to escape this nightmare and never look back was strong, but so too was the pull of the unknown, the desire to uncover the truth behind the legends, to expose the heart of Hoia Baciu's darkness. Compelled by a force that felt beyond my own volition, I stepped into the circle of stones, my heart thrumming in my chest like a bird desperate to escape its cage. The moment my foot crossed the boundary, a palpable shift occurred. The air stilled as if the forest itself was holding its breath, and a dense fog began to curl around my ankles, creeping upward with an almost sentient purpose. The world beyond the stones faded, the forest retreating into a hazy distance, leaving me isolated in a pocket of reality that felt removed from time and space. Within this shrouded enclosure, the ground seemed to pulse beneath my feet, a slow, rhythmic beat that mirrored a heartbeat. The bones at the center of the circle appeared to move ever so slightly, as if reanimating in response to my presence. The psychological horror of the moment wasn't just in what I saw, but in the realization that I was standing at the heart of something ancient and malevolent, something that had been waiting. As the fog thickened, figures began to take shape within it, shadowy forms that moved with deliberate slowness, circling the perimeter of the stones. They were indistinct, yet their presence filled me with a terror so profound it was almost paralyzing. These were not the lost souls of the forest's past victims. They were something else, entities that belonged to the forest, guardians of its darkest secrets. The air vibrated with a low hum, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself, growing louder until it filled the clearing, resonating within my bones. It was then that I noticed the carvings on the stones, symbols that were unfamiliar, yet exuded a sense of dread, as if merely looking upon them could invoke something best left undisturbed. I realized too late that the circle wasn't just a site of ancient rituals. It was a trap, a gateway meant to lure the unwary into the forest's deepest layers of horror. The figures in the fog began to draw closer, their forms becoming more defined, twisted humanoid shapes with elongated limbs and gaping mouths that seemed to whisper my name, beckoning me to join them in a chorus of silent screams. In a moment of lucidity, driven by a primal instinct to survive, I understood that the only way to escape the clearing was to break the circle, to disrupt the ritual that bound these entities to this place. With a desperation born of terror, I kicked at the bones, scattering them beyond the stone boundary. The effect was instantaneous. The humming ceased, the figures dissipated into the fog, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted, as if I had broken a spell that held the clearing in stasis. But the respite was short-lived. As the fog cleared, revealing the path I had taken into the clearing, I saw that the forest had changed once again. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches forming a canopy so dense it blocked out the sky, casting everything in a twilight gloom. The path itself had vanished, replaced by a dense underbrush that seemed to grow back as quickly as I could clear it, a living barrier designed to disorient and confuse. It was in this labyrinth of shadows and thorns that I found the next horror, a doll hanging from a tree by a noose, its porcelain face cracked and smeared with something dark. Around it, other dolls were arranged in a grotesque parody of a tea party, their eyes hollow, their clothes stained. The scene was chilling, not just for its macabre tableau, but for the implication that someone, or something, had arranged it with care, a twisted mind seeking to recreate a moment of twisted innocence in the midst of the forest's gloom. With each step forward, the psychological horror deepened, the forest revealing its secrets in layers, each more terrifying than the last. The sense of being watched was constant, a gaze that felt both curious and malevolent, as if the forest was studying me, learning my fears to craft horrors that were uniquely tailored to unravel my mind. And still, I pressed on, driven by a need to understand, to uncover the truth behind the veil of shadows. But with each discovery, the truth seemed to slip further away, obscured by the forest's ever-changing maze, its ability to manipulate reality, a reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. The deeper I ventured, the more the forest seemed to revel in my torment. It was as if Hoia Baciu had become a living entity, one that fed off my fear, drawing strength from my resolve to uncover its secrets. The path, now little more than a memory, twisted beneath my feet, leading me through a thicket of darkness that seemed impenetrable. With each step the air grew colder, the silence deeper, punctuated only by the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Then, without warning, the forest opened up into a clearing, starkly different from the one before. This time, the ground was covered in a thick layer of mist, swirling around my feet with an almost sentient intent. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient well, its stones covered in moss and ivy, as if the earth was trying to reclaim it, to hide it away from prying eyes. Drawn to the well with a sense of dread that bordered on compulsion, I approached it slowly, the mist parting before me like a curtain. Peering over the edge, I expected darkness, an abyss that mirrored the forest's heart. Instead, I was met with a reflection, not of my own face, but of a visage twisted by time and torment, eyes that bore into mine with an intensity that felt almost physical. The shock of it sent me reeling backward, falling to the ground as the figure in the well began to speak, its voice a cacophony of whispers that filled the clearing. "You seek the secrets of the forest," it said, the words echoing in my mind. "But are you prepared for the truths you will find?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. It wasn't just a challenge. It was a warning, one that spoke of dangers beyond the physical realm, of horrors that could unravel the mind and leave the soul shattered. Rising to my feet, I faced the well again, the figure gone, leaving only my reflection staring back at me, a pale imitation of myself, eyes wide with fear and determination. It was a moment of clarity, a realization that the journey through Hoia Baciu was not just a quest for answers, but a test of will, a confrontation with the darkest aspects of myself. The forest seemed to sense my resolve, the atmosphere shifting once more, becoming charged with an energy that felt both foreboding and exhilarating. The mist began to rise, forming shapes that danced around the clearing, spectres of those who had walked this path before me and had failed, their souls trapped in an eternal waltz of despair. But amidst the phantoms, a path emerged, a narrow trail that led deeper into the heart of the forest, to the source of its power. It was a path that promised answers, but at a cost, a journey that would strip away the veneer of reality and expose the raw, pulsating truth beneath. With each step, the suspense heightened, the forest throwing obstacles in my way. Trees that seemed to move, blocking my path, roots that snaked out of the ground to trip me, and a cacophony of sounds that filled the air, a mixture of whispers, cries, and laughter that seemed to mock my efforts. And then, in the distance, a light, flickering and elusive, drawing me forward. It was a beacon in the darkness, a promise of an end to the journey, but with each step I took towards it, it seemed to recede, always just out of reach, leading me deeper into the forest's embrace. The realization dawned on me then, a chilling truth that sent a shiver down my spine. The forest was not leading me to its heart, it was leading me to mine, to confront the darkest fears that lay buried within, fears that Hoia Baciu had unearthed and brought to life. The suspense was no longer about what horrors lay waiting in the forest, but within myself, a psychological terror that was far more profound and unsettling. And as the light continued to recede, the question that echoed in my mind was not whether I could survive the forest's darkness, but whether I could survive my own. Pressing forward, the realization that the journey was as much inward as it was through the dense, oppressive darkness of Hoia Baciu began to take root in my psyche. The flickering light ahead, always just beyond reach, seemed less a guide and more a mirage, a trick of the forest designed to lure me deeper into both its physical and metaphysical labyrinth. The terrain grew increasingly treacherous, the earth beneath my feet seeming to pulse with a life of its own, undulating and shifting in a way that defied natural law. The trees bent inward, their branches forming grotesque shapes, silhouettes that seemed to shift when not directly observed, whispering secrets in a language that felt unsettlingly familiar, yet wholly alien. Then, amidst the cacophony of the forest's eerie symphony, a new sound emerged, a soft, rhythmic thumping, like the beating of a heart, emanating from the ground itself. Drawn to it, I found the source. A shallow grave, freshly dug, the earth disturbed, with the handle of a shovel still protruding from the mound. It was a chilling discovery, the implication clear. This was a sign of recent human activity, a marker of intention within the forest's chaos. As I stood over the grave, the forest's whispers grew louder, a frenzied chatter that seemed to mock my horror. It was then that the ground beneath me began to tremble, a subtle vibration at first that grew into a violent quaking, as if the earth itself was reacting to the presence of the grave. From the disturbed soil, hands, pale, gaunt, and seemingly decayed, emerged, clawing at the air, reaching for something beyond their grasp. The psychological horror of the moment was overwhelming, a visceral fear that transcended the immediate threat of the grasping hands. It was the realization that Hoia Baciu held within it layers of reality, dimensions of horror that were intertwined with the very fabric of the forest. The grave, the hands, the whispers, they were all part of a larger narrative, a story that the forest was telling, one of death, rebirth, and the cyclical nature of its dark energy. Fleeing from the grave, the forest seemed to relent, the path ahead clearing, leading me to the heart of Hoia Baciu, a vast clearing where the trees receded to form a natural amphitheatre. At its centre, the source of the flickering light, a fire, burning with an ethereal flame that cast no smoke, around which figures danced in a ritualistic fervour. These figures, neither fully human nor ghost, moved with a grace that belied their eerie appearance, their faces obscured by masks of bark and bone, their bodies adorned with the trappings of the forest. It was a scene of otherworldly beauty and horror, a congregation of the forest's spirits, or perhaps its prisoners, caught in an endless dance around the fire, which I now saw was not merely a source of light, but a portal, a gateway between worlds. The realization hit me with the force of a revelation. The forest's mysteries, its horrors, were not meant to torment, but to teach, to reveal the thin veil that separates our world from the ones that lie just beyond our perception. The ritual, the dance, the fire, it was all a demonstration of the forest's power, an invitation to step beyond the bounds of the known and into the realm of the unknown. Yet standing on the threshold of this revelation, I felt a pull back towards the familiar, a fear of what stepping through the portal might mean. The psychological horror I had faced was not just in the external threats the forest presented, but in the internal confrontation with my own limits, my own fears of the unknown. The suspense had built to a crescendo, leaving me on the edge of a decision that felt monumental, a choice between embracing the unknown mysteries of Hoia Baciu and retreating to the safety of the known world, forever haunted by the question of what might have been. The forest awaited my decision, silent now, the dance around the fire slowing, the figures turning towards me, their masked faces inscrutable. The choice was mine, to step into the fire, to cross the threshold into a realm beyond, or to turn back, leaving the heart of Hoia Baciu and its secrets unexplored. In that moment, suspended between two worlds, the ultimate horror and beauty of Hoia Baciu revealed itself, not in its ghosts, its whispers, or its shifting shadows, but in its power to challenge, to change, and ultimately, to transcend the boundaries of our understanding. What lies beyond the fire, in the heart of Hoia Baciu, is a story yet to be told, a mystery that remains, for now, just out of reach. As I stood on the threshold of decision, the fire before me flickered and danced with an ethereal grace, its flames casting shadows that seemed to stretch into infinity. It was in this moment, suspended between the known and the unknowable, that the forest offered me a glimpse beyond the fire, a vision so fleeting and indistinct it was like trying to recall a dream upon waking. Through the veil of flames, I saw a world that defied all logic, a landscape where the sky pulsed with a kaleidoscope of colors that no human eye was meant to see. The ground was neither solid nor void, but a shimmering tapestry that flowed and shifted, teeming with forms and entities that defied description. Some bore a semblance of beauty so profound it ached to look upon them, while others held an aspect of horror that whispered of ancient, unspeakable fears. This realm beyond the fire, it was clear, operated under rules that were alien to our understanding, a place where time might run backwards or stand still, where the laws of physics were mere suggestions that could be bent, broken, or altogether ignored. The entities that dwelled within this place moved with purpose and intent, their motives as inscrutable as the forest itself, suggesting a world alive with mysteries and wonders far beyond human comprehension. But as quickly as the vision appeared, it vanished, leaving me standing once again on the edge of the clearing, the fire crackling before me, its flames now just flames, the otherworldly landscape nothing more than a memory that slipped through my mind like water through clenched fists. The glimpse beyond had been both a temptation and a warning, pulling me towards a decision without revealing what that decision might entail. To step through the fire was to step into a realm of infinite possibilities, a place of beauty and horror in equal measure, where the very fabric of reality could be reshaped at a whim. Yet for all its allure, the vision left me with more questions than answers. What was the nature of this world beyond the fire? Who were its inhabitants, and what did they want from me or from any who dared to cross the threshold? Was this a path to enlightenment or damnation, a doorway to a new understanding of the universe, or a portal to unimaginable terrors? The forest, for all its revelations, remained silent, its secrets shrouded in shadows and whispers. The choice, as it had always been, was mine to make. To step forward into the unknown, to embrace the possibilities of what lay beyond the fire, or to turn back, leaving the mysteries of Hoia Baciu and of myself unexplored, a tale whispered among the leaves, a question lingering in the mist. And so I stand at the edge of decision, the fire before me, the forest around me, and the unknown ahead. The path I choose will define not just my fate, but the nature of the reality I accept. A reality bounded by the familiar, or one that transcends the boundaries of our understanding. The story of Hoia Baciu, with its enigmatic heart and its whispering shadows, ends here, on the brink of discovery, leaving behind a trail of questions that beckon the brave, the curious, and the unwary to explore. What lies beyond the fire, in the heart of the forest, remains a mystery, a tantalizing glimpse into a world where the impossible becomes possible, and the truth, like the forest itself, is ever changing, ever elusive. The end, or perhaps just the beginning, is a choice that remains in the hands of those who dare to dream, to wonder, and to venture beyond the fire. Choose your path wisely, for once you step into the forest's embrace, there is no turning back. The truths you uncover may be your own, reflections of a reality you never knew existed, waiting just beyond the fire.